Hello to all you citizens out there in the Terran Federation, and welcome to episode 249 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the most on-the-bounce podcast in Camp Curry. We're recording on July 29th, 2020. As always, my name is Andrew. I'll be your host. Joining me tonight, we have Gavin, better Andrew, who from now on will be younger Andrew, and Dave.
And we'd love to hear your feedback at the show, so please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Version of the show is available on Stitcher and iTunes.
Check out the podcast at Facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast and on the IGs as well at /Canadian Patriot Podcast.
We need your help. To support the show, visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. Since we've moved to the 2-show-a-week COVID format, patrons also get early access to the midweek show. Show you're not a communist. Buy a CPP t-shirt for just $19.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right. Also, visit bigluau.biz and buy yourself a Big Luau shirt.
So glad you made the bigluau.biz.
Yeah.
Let's do my favorite segment. It's called What Are We Drinking? I would like to know where I can find the real pineapple beverage. Devin, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Jack and Coke Zero this evening.
All right. Andrew, what are you drinking?
Or quarter leg Swedish cider.
I feel like it needs more flirpity derpins.
Oh, probably, yeah. But I'm already learning one European language. I don't think I can learn another one.
All right, Dave, what are you drinking?
I'm just drinking some Miller Lite that a kind person that the show knows left at my house from the weekend. So just enjoying.
A little bit of those old breakfast beers.
Oh, yeah. Free beer is best beer.
I was going to say, best price free beer.
I've got 2x4 cream ale this week from Job Site. As reasons.
It's called Job Site?
Yeah, the brewery in town here is Job Site Brewing.
Okay.
They have a whole theme with their beer.
Exotic cars. It's really weird that they would call it Job Site.
Yeah, that makes no sense. I don't see the
It's not that at all, Dave.
I was gonna say I've never heard of it, so obviously it's a local brew.
Yeah, local brewery. All right, let's do Book and Rifle Club. This week's edition of Book and Rifle Club is obviously going to be Starship Troopers. We've already made many. Yeah, Andrew's got his copy. I've got my copy. I have a copy that I bought when I was like in elementary or high school, when books still cost like $7.
Remember back in the day, the Scholastic thing? You could just order books from it, and they would show up.
Yeah, we had like the book orders where we do like once a month. You just like order whatever you want. Stuff would be on sale, and those are the days.
We still have that. It's called Amazon.
Yeah.
This was twice as much as you got yours for.
Well, I have a very well read copy, and it's not the like the good acid free paper. So like you can see that some of the pages have started to brown around the edges. Because like the book is probably like, it's got to be at least 15 years old.
I have a few books like that.
But a book I have read several times. Also a book that's required reading for both the U.S. Army and Marine Corps and 4 out of the 5 service academies in the U.S.
Oh, I did not know that.
Not an unpopular book.
Is that
the
fifth one, the non-important one?
The fifth one is the not so real Navy.
Well,
so yeah, Starship Troopers. Let's get into that. I jotted down some topics we'll go through. I figure we should start with the limited democracy part. That's one of the
our favorite part. Yeah.
Well, not an unfavorite part. One of the key concepts in Heinlein's novel. Not everyone gets to vote. This is not a universal democracy. There are certain things that you need to do. And I'm going to read it out of order. Part of the book is written I guess I shouldn't say that. The book is written chronologically, but occasionally the character that is narrating his life story has flashbacks. So bits and pieces are out of order.
Johnny Rico.
That's right, man. Start with kind of start near the end of the book, and then we'll jump back to the beginning. They're at officer candidate school. Obviously, there are going to be a bunch of spoilers in this as we go through. So if you haven't read the book yet, well, you should have read the book.
Yeah, gave you a month's notice, if not more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or listen to it. That's what I have the book, but I didn't have time to read it, so I listened to it while I was working.
Same.
Nothing wrong with that. So at officer candidate school, in one of the classes on moral history and philosophy, servicemen are not brighter than civilians. In many cases, civilians are much more intelligent. That was a sliver of justification underlying the attempted coup d'etat just before the Treaty of New Delhi, the so-called revolt of the scientists. Let the intelligent elite run things and you'll have utopia. It fell flat on its foolish face, of course. Because of the pursuit of science, despite its social benefits, is itself not a social virtue. Its practitioners can be men so self-centered as to be lacking in social responsibility. I've given you a hint, mister. Can you pick it up? Sally answered. Servicemen are more disciplined, sir. Major Reed was gentle with him. Sorry, an appealing theory not backed up by facts. You and I are not permitted to vote as long as we remain in the service, nor is it very verifiable that the military discipline makes men more self-disciplined once he is out. The crime rate of veterans is much like that of civilians. And you've forgotten that in peacetime most veterans come from non-combat auxiliary services and have not been subjected to the full rigors of military discipline. They have merely been harried, overworked, and endangered, yet their voices count. Major Reed smiled. Mr. Solomon, I handed you a trick question. The practical reason for continuing our system is the same as the practical reason for continuing anything. It works satisfactorily. Nevertheless, it is instructive to observe the details. Throughout history, men have labored to place their sovereign franchise in the hands that would guard it well and use it wisely for benefit of all. An early attempt was absolute monarchy, passionately defended as the divine right of kings. Sometimes attempts were made to select wise monarchs rather than leave it up to God, as when the Swedes picked a Frenchman, General Bonaparte, to rule them. The objection to this is the supply of Bonapartes is limited. Historic examples range from absolute to utter anarchy. Mankind has tried thousands of ways, and many more have been proposed. Some weird in the extremes, such as the ant-like communism urged by Plato under the misleading title of the Republic. But the intent has always been moralistic, to provide stable, benevolent government. That's the first little bit on unlimited democracy. This is the part where we have the whole service guarantees citizenship piece. But it doesn't make a ton of sense why service was guaranteed citizenship if the people in service are no better than anyone else. Feel free to jump in anytime.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe we should,
I thought you were going to read again.
for those that maybe haven't read it, I guess clarify what that means. And by service, they mean military service. You need to volunteer and then serve your term.
In the context of this book, not even military service specifically, federal service.
Okay, yes. Yeah.
So predominantly military or some most unreasonable facsimile thereof.
Yeah. You could be logistics in the military or some other function. And that counts.
The very beginning of the book when they're talking about so Juan Rico and his school friends are going to enlist for their term of federal service to get their franchise. And Fleet Sergeant Ho's talking to them about their various options. Obviously, the intelligent, good-looking young woman wants to be a pilot. The intelligent fellow that Johnny's friends with, he wants to go and be a scientist. Johnny has no idea. He's doing the whole thing on a lark to impress a girl.
So he wants to be
as one does.
Clearly not a good plan.
Yeah.
But Fleet Sergeant Ho even talks about that anyone that's crazy enough that wants to join the federal service that can't be in the military or can't serve in some more useful capacity could end up on a research station on Jupiter testing biological warfare agents.
Yeah,
Because
and I
it
mean,
just
he even
needs to be something
tries to talk him
dangerous.
out of joining and to make sure that like this is absolutely what he wants to do.
Yeah, because in there they can't refuse people.
But they can weed them out once they're in.
Yeah, and it's very easy for them to leave whenever they join. So it's all voluntary, completely. So
Yeah, the ass whooping stops when you want it to stop. There's nobody forcing you to be there.
Well, I like the concept on beating up on Plato a bit, though.
Mhm.
And I like the not letting the scientists run everything. The premise for this is after some sort of massive world war between the Russo-Anglo-American alliance and the Chinese hegemony, everything just sort of breaks down. A lot of countries failed, and as a result, new governments started to form themselves. New systems of organization started to form themselves. And the example that's cited in this is that the first couple places this happened, it was predominantly veterans from this massive world war, and they elected themselves to be in charge because they were willing to go and stop rioters and looters and hang people, including veterans that were not acting desirably. So it was really a way for them to control things because they don't necessarily trust other veterans, but they trust them more than anybody else.
Well, yeah, they've been, willing to enforce the rules, so they have an understanding of what goes along with that. So therefore, when they create the rules, they do so with that in mind.
The thing that keeps blowing me away with this book is how
Those sweet
accurate.
Oh.
Well, yeah, those two, of course, we all want one. But no, how accurate? Because I didn't realize how old this book actually was. I was thinking it was written in the early 90s, and it was written in the late 50s. Because the stuff that's going on right now, down to the rioting, to the Chinese, to we're possibly on the edge of, we could be on the edge of a world war at some point. We're pretty close, and just the way governments are failing, and the way scientists, I feel, is kind of like that green movement. That's the scientists trying to basically instill their rule upon everybody else, and it's obviously failing. It's stupid. And just how accurate it all was throughout the book to to this very day. It just blew me away.
Especially how they say that people have been treating their kids and stuff lately, and trying to get them to learn. They've gone over to coddling them, and you can't discipline them in any way because that's bad, and it'll cause emotional issues with them. And
yeah, he went into that.
Social services will come over. I'm like, oh my god, this book is almost 70 years old, and it's going into exactly what has happened in this generation so far. It's.
I don't think I had a quote handy for that, but I'll try and find the section. I know which chapter that was in, chapter 8, because it's another class on history and moral philosophy where they're talking about
training their dogs,
delinquents.
Yeah, and then also brought it over to training their dogs to sort of dumb it down, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's almost like the writing isn't on the wall; it's in a book that was written in the 50s, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I have a thing on the juvenile delinquency handy. I know which chapter it is.
But that theme, what Gavin just said, also ties in with another book that we'll probably do later in terms of how much the government has control over you.
Yeah, I've been reading ahead, and it's all too true. Much like, there were definitely aspects of this book that in context with today's world, you're like, man, he just nailed it. This is scary.
He's fucking bang on, and it was 60 years ago he wrote the thing.
And I'm still when I was listening to it, I was amazed on how I don't want to say that how he told the future, but the way he wrote things, it was vague enough that you can picture current equipment or terminology or whatever very easily, and you can picture it taking place at like any timeline. Like it could take place now, it could take place further into the future and stuff. Like, yeah, there'd be a couple terms that'd be like, okay, yeah, that's a dated one, but you know, for everything else, like this book really holds up well, and you can read it probably at like any point and still lines up well.
Any luck there, Andrew?
All right, I think I got the part that I want for the juvenile delinquents, since that's the part that we're talking about now with not spanking your kids and having all of these social services and everything. So this is a flashback with Mr. Dubois in high school history and moral philosophy. The basis of all morality is duty, a concept with the same relation to the group that self-interest has to the individual. Nobody preached duty to these kids in a way that they could understand, that is, with a spanking. But the society they were in told them endlessly about their rights. The results should have been predictable, since a human being has no natural rights of any nature. Mr. Dubois paused. Somebody took the bait. Sir, how about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Ah, yes, the unalienable rights. Each year, someone quotes that magnificent poetry. Life. What right to life is a man who's drowning in the Pacific? The ocean will not hearken to his cries. What right to life is a man who must die to save his own children? If he chooses to save his own life, does he do so as a matter of right? If two men are starving and cannibalism is the only alternative to death, which man's right is unalienable? And is it right? As to liberty, the heroes who signed that great document pledged themselves to buy liberty with their lives. Liberty is never unalienable. It must be redeemed regularly with the blood of patriots, or it always vanishes. Of all the so-called natural human rights that have ever been invented, liberty is the least likely to be cheap and is never free of cost. The third right, the pursuit of happiness, it is indeed unalienable, but it is not a right. It is simply a universal condition which tyrants cannot take away, nor patriots restore. Cast me into a dungeon, burn me at the stake, crown me king of kings. I can pursue happiness as long as my brain lives, but neither gods nor saints, wise men nor subtle drugs can ensure that I will catch it. Mr. Dubois turned to me. I told you that juvenile delinquent is a contradiction in terms. Delinquent means failing in duty, but duty is an adult virtue. Indeed, a juvenile becomes an adult, and only when he acquires the knowledge of duty and embraces it as dearer than the self-love he was born with. There never was, there cannot be a juvenile delinquent. But for every juvenile criminal, there is always one or more adult delinquents. People of mature years who either do not know their duty or who, knowing it, fail. And that is the soft spot which destroyed what was in many ways an admirable culture. The junior hoodlums who roamed the streets were symptoms of greater sickness. Their citizens, all of them counted as such, glorified in their mythology of rights and lost track of their duties. No nation so constituted can endure.
Describe Seattle to...
I mean, yeah. There's a lot
Seattle
of things going on in the world that you can take from that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is the fallacy of like unalienable rights, right? That you have all of these things. Well, okay, but you can only have them so long as you can defend them. Is maybe not the right word, but like
earn them.
But you only have them to exercise them, right? Like
you only have as much liberty as you're willing to defend. Basically, you only have as much happiness as you're willing to go out there and get and work for and take for yourself.
I think it's a bit of a fallacy to cast this against like the man drowning in the ocean.
Nah.
Okay, the ocean doesn't care that he has a right to life, but I think when we're applying that to other people, it's maybe a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But children don't have rights, or at least I don't think they ought to.
Yeah, they're still learning.
Yeah,
they need to be taught what a right is.
Like how he kind of rephrases the sort of older quote about, the tree of liberty being refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants alike. He puts his own kind of spin on it, but it's that same thing that, like you can have all the liberty you want, but like it comes at a cost. Like,
You got to defend it.
yeah,
If
Well,
you're going to have people that are
that's-
trying to take it from you, right?
That's kind of the whole service guarantee citizenship piece that I like about this
Yeah.
application of democracy. It's a very very Spartan form of democracy, a very Swiss form of democracy. Like, if you want to have a say in how politics is conducted, then you have to do something for something greater than yourself. You're not allowed to just get a vote to give yourself free shit. You have to be willing to go and exercise violence to get the thing that you want, or at least you have to have been able to have demonstrate that you're capable of that.
well, that
And
yeah,
you're capable of putting the group ahead of yourself.
well, and that's the thing. It's not just saying it; it's doing it, right? Like,
Yeah.
everybody likes to say that they will. It's for the greater good. Let's tax everybody, but it's like the vast majority of people calling for higher taxes aren't the people being taxed. So they're not giving up anything for the greater good. They're shouting at people to get them to give up something else for the greater good, and that's not the same thing.
And like you said, it doesn't necessarily need to be violence either. It's just give back to the community, give back to
Yeah,
the people.
put
Yeah, give
yourself at
something
risk.
up,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. Whether it's your time, whether it's your tears, whether it's your blood and sweat, something, so that you
Yeah.
earn that welfare check. To put it in layman's term, or that break that you're screaming for.
Well, that's kind of thing, right? It's like, how many of these people are going to be like, well, we should give everybody welfare if they're not willing to do the thing for federal service and get their whatever that outcome is. Because you see throughout the book, a lot of the people in the mobile infantry end up with some sort of prosthetic or outright death. They keep talking in the book about buying the farm, which is just a euphemism for being killed, right?
Or buying a piece of property, or
Yeah.
part of a
Mhm.
farm or something.
The interesting thing about their concept, though, is that, like, you don't get the franchise until you have completed your term, and if you extend your term, that carries through. Like, you don't get to vote until the end of it. So if you're a career military person, you may never get to exercise your franchise because you haven't earned it yet.
Which I support that concept, because I don't want people in the government deciding how the government is run. This is the same as letting teachers unions vote. If you're employed by the government and you're demanding the government pay you more, at the very least there's a conflict of interest there.
Yeah, and if you're still at risk of getting your ass shot off, you're probably not going to vote to go to war,
Yeah,
even
I
if
was
it's
just gonna say that.
necessary.
Well, I mean, they draw that comparison in the novel, right? Like, if you let troopers vote, then someday the troopers are going to vote to not drop, and you can't have troopers that don't drop.
Yeah, because everybody
drops,
drops.
everybody fights.
Yeah, doesn't matter who you are.
Which, there's definitely things about that with the limited franchise that I find very appealing, because I think this is one of the big problems, that we have too many people that are too quick to promise other people's money, and we have too many people that vote in favor of taking other people's money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
By
and I mean,
limiting that.
With no basic understanding of how economics work.
well, but I mean, without any of that, it doesn't limit it so that it's not achievable. It limits it in a way that anyone that wants to can achieve it. It's there for you to do if you choose to, right?
Yep.
But it comes at great personal risk. You have to put everyone else ahead of you, and you might buy the farm, or at least make out well on a real estate deal.
Yeah.
Right? You end up like Fleet Sergeant Ho with, one good arm and 3 prosthetics.
Yeah.
At least they'll
I
be
think
good
that's what he had,
prosthetics.
right? He definitely had to get different legs. I think he only had one good arm at the beginning of the book, but there is something to be said for not letting the government officials, or I guess the maybe not the government officials, but the people who will end up voting, not letting them vote while they're in their term of service. I think it's too easy for them to not vote in favor of things that they otherwise would, or things that they should.
Yeah.
They're busy worrying about, like, oh, we have to go do another, another patrol, get in the Corvette and go to a planet and wage some war against somebody.
Yeah.
Let's get way back to the beginning, chapter 2, because we talked a little bit about this willingness to put yourself behind the group and the willingness of exercising political violence for your own means. And so another flashback to history and moral philosophy, this time with Mr. Dubois again. If I can find my spot.
Just as while you're looking for it, I'll just fill the air. Just so everybody knows, Mr. Dubois is also ex-MI, so he has taken a bit of a liking to the main character as you read through the book.
Yeah, it's different than the movie. So if you watch the movie and haven't read the book, they don't serve together.
Don't even think about the movie. I made that mistake in the beginning. I'm like, so when are they gonna fight the bugs? And it's like it was like maybe one chapter, 1 or 2 chapters of actually fighting bugs. I mean, but like it was once I like absorbed everything from the book and realized that the book is about something bigger than just an action flick.
The movie is certainly worth watching, though. I mean, for the shower scene alone, if nothing else. But
there will be no simping for Carmen on this podcast.
To be honest with you, I don't know if you guys know there was like a television show that was made that I think did it more justice than the show. Yeah, animated series. Like it was like 3D animated.
Yeah.
Well, and
it's called Roughnecks.
2 or 3 like straight to video sequels.
Oh fuck! Those
I made the mistake of renting those once back when there was still a Rogers Video. Man, I want that $4 back.
And then there's like an animated video as well, and it goes worse.
Yeah, the show is quite entertaining. I mean, I'm probably remembering it better than it was. I used to watch it like every day before school, like when I was in elementary school. It was a pretty entertaining show, but it was more about the actual ground war and whatnot, fighting the bugs and stuff, without the ridiculousness of the movie.
All right, let's go back to history, moral philosophy again.
Yeah.
But on the last day, he seemed to be trying to find out what we had learned. One girl told him bluntly, "My mother says that violence never settles anything." So, Mr. Dubois looked at her bleakly. "I'm sure that the city fathers of Carthage would be glad to know that. Why doesn't your mother tell them so? Or why don't you?" They had tangled before. Since she couldn't flunk the course, it wasn't necessary to keep Mr. Dubois buttered up. She said shrilly, "You're making fun of me. Everybody knows that Carthage was destroyed." "You seem to be unaware of it," he said grimly. "Since you do not know it, wouldn't you say that violence has settled their destinies rather thoroughly? However, I was not making fun of you personally. I was heaping scorn on an inexcusable, silly idea, a practice I shall always follow. Anyone who clings to the historically untrue and thoroughly immoral doctrine that violence never settles anything, I would advise conjure up the ghosts of Napoleon Bonaparte and the Duke of Wellington and let them debate it. Or the ghost of Hitler could referee, and the jury might well be the dodo, the great auk, and the passenger pigeon. Violence, naked force, has settled more issues in history than any other factor, and the contrary opinion is wishful thinking at its worst. Breeds that forget this basic truth have always paid for it with their lives and freedoms." He sighed. "Another year, another class, and for me, another failure. One can lead children to knowledge, but one cannot make them think." Suddenly he pointed his stump at me. "You, what is the moral difference, if any, between the soldier and the civilian?" "The difference," I answered carefully, "lies in the field of civic virtue. A soldier accepts personal responsibility for the safety of the body politic of which he is a member, defending it, if need be, with his life. The civilian does not." "The exact words of the book," he said scornfully. "But do you understand it? Do you believe it?" "I don't know, sir." "Of course you don't. I doubt if anyone here could recognize civic virtue if it came up and barked in your face." He glanced at his watch. "And that is all, a final all. Perhaps we shall meet again under happier circumstances. Dismissed." that is probably one of my favorite parts of the book, is because like the children in high school have no idea what's going on around them, and I mean I was one of these children in high school. I've talked on the show before. At one point, I thought it would be great to be a socialist because everybody would be treated equally. Because I didn't understand that's not what socialism meant.
Well, I think we all probably had similar altruistic thoughts and values and ideas as a kid, because you want the best for everybody, right?
Yeah. But universal income sounds like a great idea.
You get older and you kind of realize that like it just doesn't work that way, right? Like, you know, on paper, communism is the best system. In practice, it's pretty friggin' terrible.
Yeah, human's gonna human.
Yeah.
How does the quote go? If you're not a communist when you're a kid, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative as an adult, you have no brain, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think it's something exactly like that. Yeah, 100%.
No, I mean, like, we can talk a little bit about the anti-communism part. I didn't mean to necessarily segue as quickly as that, but they do talk a little bit later in the book about Marx, particularly how Marx is a fraud, and also labor theory of value being complete bunk. But
I mean, it's not wrong.
We should talk a little bit. We should talk a little bit more, I think, about the citizen versus civilian aspect of that, and the guaranteed. The way to guarantee citizenship. So, of course, when they mean citizenship in the novel, they're talking about the franchise, the right to vote, suffrage, if you will. No communism? Okay.
Yeah, go to communism. We're already on board.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess like
We're kind of this in the last topic when we were talking about it. Like, if you're not giving something up, why should you get the right to dictate what everyone else is, what's going on and what's happening to them?
Yeah, civilians are the everyday people that go about their lives and, you know, are subject to the rules and regulations that everyone else is subject to. And then, yeah, the citizens are those that have served their term and now have the ability to vote on the rules that they all have to abide by.
And it didn't talk about this in the book at all, but I'd like to think that if a civilian doesn't like some of the rules and regulations that are going on, they can just move move to another country or an area that has different rules. And, you know, it's very, I'd like to say it's easy for them to do that. A hell of a lot easier than doing service to try and change things on their end, but find an area that's works better for them, because people are giving up their lives to turn the country that they love and fought for into something that they like and enjoy even better.
I don't know how easy it would be within the Terran Federation to move to somewhere that doesn't fall under the purview of the Terran Federation. I mean, in terms of the book, we know that there are three species that exist. There are the humans, which have formed the Terran Federation. There are the skinnies, who we don't know a lot about from Chapter 1. And there are the arachnids, the bugs. And the bugs just want to take over the galaxy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's also a fair argument that the Terran Federation wants to do the same thing. They also want to take over the galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's places
the skinnies that seem to just get beaten up by both sides.
Yeah, because the book didn't go into detail on like how the rule of law works, and like, does each planet sort of have somewhat different rules, or do they all have the same rules?
You're right. That is not clear. The part that the book does talk about is that this is the through the lens that the author uses. This is the best time in human history because the taxes are at their lowest, crime is at its lowest, freedom of speech is possible, freedom of the press, religion, expression are all very very liberal, but the people that are running the show are veterans. So I don't know. It seems to me looking at it through that lens that if that's accurate, that crime is actually at its lowest point, and that's not like straight up Terran Federation propaganda, as Gavin has his giant global interest. Yeah. We've always been at war with East Eurasia.
Yeah.
Oh no, wait, wrong book. That's coming up. I don't know. If that's the case, it seems like even as a civilian, without the ability to vote, that still seems like you're in a really good position. And maybe it's a grass is always greener thing. Like from their perspective, maybe they don't feel like they're super free, or they don't have that freedom of expression, or that they still pay too much in taxes, or whatever it is. But I don't know, looking at it in the book, they have colonies on other planets and faster than light travel and very limited crime. Like they talk about a little bit of crime, and occasionally like there's some like fist fights and things, but they're
major crime you hang, like you actually hang. So it's
and that's something worth discussing. I think maybe we should touch on that.
Segue to it, yeah.
Well, then I'll come back to the Marxism, anti-communism stuff. Talking about, I think this is also in chapter 8. At one point, there was a deserter from Camp Curry. Camp Curry is the training center, one of the training centers for the mobile infantry. There's a deserter early on. We don't really hear anything about him, and there were a couple of incidents that happened at Camp Curry. One of which is Hendricks. He is charged with, he's charged with failure to obey an order, and he's given he fails to accept his summary punishment. So his company commander was going to give him some sort of summary punishment. He wanted to speak to the battalion commander. The battalion commander put him on restrictions for like 30 days, extra duty, all that stuff. And then it comes up in the course of that the private side of the story was not heard, at which point he incriminates himself for having struck his company commander. And he gets his ass flogged as a result.
Yeah, what was it
10
called?
lashings?
One of those hard drops? Or
10 lashings.
hard exit?
One of the 92 crash landings.
Crash landings, that's it, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember if it's actually 92, but it's something like that. One of the
43?
92 crash landings.
Well, and there's something interesting about like the conversation that comes out after that, when it's the two officers talking about what took place and all of that, which I think ties into another book that we're probably going to get into, Extreme Ownership, where it's not that the guy punched him, it's like you should never have let him have the opportunity to punch you.
You should never let it get to that point as the person who's supposed to be the leader and the one in charge, who's supposed to be the best of the best.
Interesting with Sergeant Zim is that Zim is the company commander for Rico's training company at Camp Curry, and they're not supposed to be in a position where the recruits are able to basically do anything unexpected, like punch the instructors in the face. Because it ends up with one of the 92 crash landing offenses, which is a flogging.
Yeah.
So it's a failing of leadership on that the recruit was in a position where he's able to get away with this.
At the time.
But now that he's done it, you can't let him get away with it.
Something's got to be done with. Well, and Zim tried like hell to get him out of it.
Yeah, he threw him a bone, right? Because he kept it quiet.
Yeah.
He tried to, anyways, and then the guy
Zim
was
was
such a
going to give him a
dumbass.
field punishment.
Yeah.
Hendricks was like, "No, I want to talk to the battalion commander." He talked to the battalion commander. The battalion commander was like, 30 days restrictions, extra duty, whatever. And he's like, "You didn't even hear my side of the story." And the battalion commander's like, "Oh, okay, tell me your side of the story." And he's telling him the story. He's like, "And I popped him." And stop. You struck your company commander and okay,
they're willing
martial.
to punish him off the books, but he keeps insisting, and then it becomes official. They even get the guy on the phone or whatever to hear the thing, and an official tribunal, and he just opens his damn mouth. So here's a lesson for everybody: never admit anything.
Yeah, shut your fucking mouth. Shut your mouth.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, Corporal Punishment in the Starship Troopers universe, obviously it applies within the mobile infantry, although mostly within recruit training, they don't really have a lot of corporal punishment after Camp Curry.
It's pretty hard to screw up for the most part.
Well,
unless there's like dereliction of duty and stuff like that. But
and that's kind of thing is like after Camp Curry, they start to get into police actions or small military engagements, and then they get into like an all-out war, like a real all-out war. But I don't imagine there's a lot of interest in corporal punishment for like people mouthing off, although they also tend to settle things more physically. Like when Johnny gets to I think it's his first. It might have been his second ship, and he gets into it with Ace.
Mm.
And they just go to the washroom and settle it themselves, and they just get into a fist fight.
Yeah, just beat each other senseless, and then they're like, "All right,
Yeah,
all
he
right, bro, got
he
you."
gets a promotion to a rank that he maybe shouldn't have, and now
Yeah,
he's
squad leader, I think, something like that.
Yeah, ahead of somebody that has more time and experience. And
Third
there's
lieutenant.
there's some trust issues and maybe some butt hurtness there. So yeah, they go and settled it, but once it's settled, it's done.
Mhm.
You know, he's earned that respect by going, okay, let's, like, here are the rules to our little fist fight. Let's have it out and never speak of it again.
Yeah, which I don't want to say that I encourage that as a way of solving disputes, but I think a lot more people would be a lot less mouthy if they were worried about getting punched in the face for their bad ideas.
But not only
Yeah.
that, do you think there would still be people risking gun trafficking and shooting up the streets of Toronto if they actually were hanged? If they're caught red-handed? So you were on video.
I think it would be a lot more of a deterrent, and I think that that's really the best we can hope for with corporal or capital punishments, is they work as a deterrent.
Mm.
But if they don't work as a deterrent, they work as a really good prevention of recidivism. People who get hung don't tend to do the same thing twice.
Yeah.
Well, and usually their buddies take heat.
I mean, if you have to go and get like 10 public lashings, you're going to think twice before you do that again. Right? Like, I mean, look at that guy that had to go to Singapore and did the spray painting and stuff and got caned for it. Like, you know, do you think that guy's going around to foreign countries and spray painting now? Probably not.
Probably not, no.
Or at least he's gotten a lot better at it. Yeah.
I've got a pretty good quote, like as I was talking about earlier with disciplining your kids, sort of how you'd go down that path and would be a repeat offender. This is going to be about a page or two, so apologies for the length and possible stuttering or whatever. Let's get back to those juvenile criminals. The most vicious, average, somewhere younger than you were here in this class, and they often started their lawless careers much younger. Let us never forget that puppy. These children were often caught. Police arrested batches each day. Were they scolded? Yes, often scathingly. Were their noses rubbed in it? Rarely. News organs and officials usually kept their names secret, and in many places the law so required for criminals under 18. Were they spanked? Indeed not. Many never been spanked, even as small as children. There was a widespread belief that spanking, or any punishment involving pain, did a child permanent psychic damage. I had reflected that my father must have never heard of that theory. Corporal punishment in school was forbidden by law. He had gone on. Flogging was lawful, a sentence of court only in one small province, Delaware, and there was only for a few crimes, and it was rarely invoked. It was regarded as cruel and unusual punishment. Dubois had mussed around. I do not understand objections to cruel and unusual punishment. While a judge should be benevolent in purpose, his awards should cause the criminal to suffer, else there is no punishment. And pain is the basic mechanism built into us by millions of years of evolution, which safeguards us by warning when something threatens our survival. Why should society refuse to use such highly perfected survival mechanism? However, that period was loaded with pre-scientific pseudo-psychological nonsense. As for unusual, punishment must be unusual or it serves no purpose. He then pointed his stump at another boy. What would happen if a puppy were spanked every hour? Probably drive him crazy. Probably. It certainly would not teach him anything. How long has it been since the principal of the school last had to switch a pupil? I'm not sure. About 2 years. The kid that swiped. Never mind. Long enough. It means that such punishment is so unusual as to be significant, to deter, to instruct. Back to these young criminals. They probably were not spanked as babies. They certainly were not flogged for their crimes. The usual sequence was, for a first offense, a warning, a scolding, often without trial. After several offenses, a sentence of confinement, but with sentence suspended, and the youngster placed on probation. A boy might be arrested many times and convicted several times before he was punished, and then it would be merely confinement, with others like him for whom he learned still more criminal habits. If he kept out of major trouble while confined, he could usually evade most of even the mild punishment, be given probation, paroled, in the jargon of the times. This incredible sequence could go on for years while his crimes increased in frequency and viciousness, with no punishment whatever, save rare, dull, but comfortable confinements. Then suddenly, usually by law on the 18th birthday, this so-called juvenile delinquent becomes an adult criminal, and sometimes wound up only weeks or months in a death cell awaiting execution for murder.
Yep, it's like I said, it's just absolutely crazy how accurate it is to our revolving door justice system, especially in this country.
Well, I think this is one of the problems, and I think this is why they talked about with the execution of Dillinger, because that was someone who you could argue is a juvenile delinquent, someone who has recently turned 18. They've enrolled into the federal service. They had their options to leave, and they didn't. They ended up at Camp Curry, and then they deserted the military. They went on to kill a young child, and subsequently arrested. And as soon as the local magistrate got involved and whatever, found out what was going on and who Dillinger was, the local commanding general for the MI got involved and brought him back to his own battalion, where they did the whole Danny Deaver bit with him. So the Kipling reference in the book, right? So they hung him from the neck until he was dead. Part of that is the mobile infantry looking after its own, which, I mean, we see that in other relatively elite military outfits in our modern times. The whole leave no man behind mentality that they have in some of the more elite military units. But we also have the idea of like the group taking care of itself. So these are the people that are going to end up being politicians or hold elected offices or whatever that is. They're going to do the hard thing. They're going to make the hard choices. They're going to do what is morally right for society.
Well, they work together as a team and look after one another, but they also clean up their own messes, right?
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
and I think that's the case with Dillinger. Is this is like, it's gone too far. He's murdered a child. He's brought in shame to himself and to his unit. So his battalion needs to do something about that.
Yeah, and they also did say in the book that because he went AWOL and technically was still in the military, it was their responsibility to discipline him. Or, well, discipline's not a strong enough term, but
yeah, I mean,
Punishment.
yeah,
in our real world, I mean, that would be very easy for the military to absolve themselves of that and go, not our problem. But in this fictional world where there's a lot more, order, that's the way that they do it. And I think that is the correct way, because it sets an example, it sets the tone, and it puts the people that are going to be made to make the decisions in a place where they see the consequences of some of those decisions and actions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's good. The other thing we should jump back to with corporal punishment, not so much the capital punishment. We should jump back to the conversation that we were having about Hendrik and punching Zim in the face and then getting his flogging for that. They had also talked about the swagger sticks. I think they might have had a different name for it in the book, but all the instructor sergeants all walk around with a staff, a stick.
Yeah, it's like an electrocution stick, kind of like a cattle prod ish.
Oh, did you take it to be a cattle prod? I took it as literally like a British Army pace stick, like a swagger.
I took it as like a nightstick baton sort of.
Yeah, for like for marching.
The swagger
and whatnot,
sticks are like leather or metal, wood or metal covered with leather with like a silver pommel of sorts with like your unit or brigade or whatever's logo on it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Sorry. Yeah, I know what you're talking
Which
about.
I think those should still be a thing. Like,
I think they are in some regiments and whatnot.
The British and Canadian military still use swagger and pace sticks.
Everyone should
there's
still
a whole
use
book.
those because they're baller.
Oh, in the version I have, it says instructor's baton.
Okay, instructor's baton. So I took it to be a pay stick kind of a thing, but they talked about that at some point
Oh, it
someone
says swagger cane as well. So
Yeah, it probably goes back and forth. Yeah.
Someone had taken that in their training and doctrine group, had decided that it was better for the instructors to use the swagger sticks to beat the recruits with, rather than to just do it bodily themselves, rather than to just like physically strike them,
Punch them.
It was yeah, well, instead of slapping them or punching them, it was more dignified for both the instructor and the recruit, for the instructor sergeants to be using their swagger stick to correct the recruit.
Well, it becomes a corrective tool as opposed to he just punched me in the face.
Yeah, you can wrap them on the knuckles, or you can absolutely clock them across the freaking face with it. You can have multiple levels.
Yeah, but I mean, like the mechanical distance of having an implement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not so up
creates a
close and
different.
personal.
Yeah,
Well, I think that's part of it. Is it does make it less personal, and I think that's part of the reason why that they do it. Is it's the sergeant instructor's badge of office, right? It's the thing that represents them as a sergeant instructors. They all have their swagger sticks, but it's also their method of correction, and it's a very impersonal method of correction, because they can just walk down the line in the morning and you're not out of your bed and just
smack,
wrap you about the head and shoulders with it and encourage you to get out of bed. Or you're standing in formation and you're not standing upright, and they can wrap you about the head and shoulders and encourage you to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But they're not
poke you with it, hit you with it, point things out with it. Like, it's their
tool.
Yeah.
And they made it very specific in the. Sorry. They made it very specific in the book that anytime they were going to have like a one-on-one training fight, I suppose I forget the name's not coming, but they would discard that and put it off to the side to show that, like, okay, we're equals right now. It is okay for you to strike me, obviously, and then go through, then have their one-on-ones settle whatever was going on at the time, and then okay, we're putting this back on. I'm back to being your instructor.
Yeah, I like that idea for both the corporal and capital punishment. I mean, people who receive capital punishment don't commit the same crime twice. People that have received corporal punishment, I think it works as a better deterrent. I don't think it's going to stop crimes, but I think it's one of those things. It's like, we need more actual punishment and less putting people in comfortable jail cells and giving them, three meals a day and Xbox and TV time.
Yeah.
It's not
Paul
really
Bernardo had more Xbox games than I did when I saw a picture of it.
So I mean, like, it's not a deterrent for the way that our criminal justice system works now. I much prefer the, like, oh, we're not going to house you or feed you or anything. We're just going to, like, take
hard
you
labor
downtown and strike you 5 times with a whip, and then that's your punishment. Like, the Crown's only got to buy the whip once. It's good for a while. It's not like it's going to wear out right away.
Well, then start issuing swagger sticks to all the police officers so that, like, when they go about town and they just see you being an idiot, they can just give you a little one, in the back of the head with it, or like, a little slap on the knuckles, right? Where it's not worth, like, getting the courts involved, but you did something stupid.
Well, and
you're like, I earned that one. Okay.
A warning should be, some hard labor of some sort, go clean up the 401 for, 60 days or 30 days, all day, every day, pick up garbage. There's lots of miles to do it. That is a warning. You know what I mean? That's getting off light, in my opinion.
Long gone are the days where criminals had to make license plates and things like that. I mean, the Ontario government closed down a prison that used to make all the old picnic tables and stuff like that for the provincial parks. And in fact, it was the only prison that actually funded itself through the selling of these picnic tables and everything to the provincial parks. Because, why would we do that? But it was, forced labor, which now you can't do. Because, criminals still have
we can't
rights.
do because kinder and gentler, and I take exception to that. If you've been imprisoned, I don't know that you have a lot of rights left to be exercising.
No, but they still have to. You can't force them to do work, even though they're the lowest of the low. Like, if you had a whole cell block full of pedos you couldn't be like, all right, guys, so you're going to have to like go and do the hardest of hard manual labor all day, every day from now until the end of time. You can't do that.
No, I think in my understanding of the novel, there wouldn't be cell blocks full of pedos. There'd be a lot of people doing the Danny Deaver though.
Yeah, I'm 100% okay with that, and that's why I like the book's method of dealing with things and the way that it works, as opposed to the clown world that we live in.
2 pounds hot wings.
Yeah.
If it ever comes to fruition, invest in hemp.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, that's why we need some more corporal and capital punishment, I think, in our system. I mean, if you can reserve it for things where it's warranted, but it needs to be there, I think.
No, I think that makes sense, and I think part of that, like with what Andrew was saying regarding the juvenile delinquents, the young criminals, we need something more of a deterrent than a strong talking to and asking them politely to not do that anymore.
And as well as not having like the parents being in fear of like child protective services or social services or something, like coming and taking away their kids for
Trying to
Jesus,
discipline
at
them.
this point now,
Yeah.
like denying
They-
them to get gender reassignment surgery or something like that. Like,
Or just leaving them in the backyard alone for 10 minutes to play
like,
while you're inside. Yeah. Not even punishing your children for something they've done wrong, letting them have fun in the outdoors. Yeah.
Mhm.
Should we talk about some communism stuff?
Yeah.
All right.
Stupid.
let's do
Next
that.
topic.
So, not wrong. Another flashback to history and moral philosophy with Mr. Dubois. Of course, the Marxian definition of value is ridiculous. All the work that one cares to add will not turn a mud pie into an apple tart. It remains a mud pie. Value, 0. By corollary, unskillful work can easily subtract value. An untalented cook can turn wholesome dough and fresh green apples, valuable already, into an inedible mess. Value, 0. Conversely, a great chef can fashion these same materials, a confection of greater value than the commonplace apple tart, with no more effort than an ordinary cook uses to prepare an ordinary sweet. The kitchen illustration demolishes the Marxian theory of value, the fallacy from which the entire magnificent fraud of communism derives. And the illustrative truth of the common sense definition is measured in terms of use. Nevertheless, the disheveled old mystic of Das Kapital, turgid, tortured, confused, and neurotic, unscientific, illogical, this pompous fraud, Karl Marx, nevertheless, had a glimmering of very important truth. If he had possessed an analytical mind, he might have formulated the first adequate definition of value, and this planet might have been saved endless grief. Or it might not. So then he asks Rico a question. If you can't listen, perhaps you can tell the class whether value is relative or an absolute. An absolute, I answered, guessing. Wrong, he said coldly. Value has no meaning other than in relation to living being. The value of a thing is always relative to a particular person, is completely personal and different in quality for each living human. Market value is a fiction, merely a rough guess at the average of personal values, all of which must be quantitatively different, or trade would be impossible. This is a very personal relationship. Value has two factors for a human being. First, what he can do with a thing, its use to him, and second, what he must do to get it, its cost to him. There's an old song which asserts the best things in life are free. Not true, utterly false. This is a tragic fallacy which brought upon the decadence and collapse of democracies of the 20th century. Those notable experiments failed because people had been led to believe that they could simply vote for whatever they wanted and get it, without toil, without sweat, without tears. Nothing of value is free. Even the breath of life is purchased at birth only through gasping effort and pain. If you boys and girls had to sweat for your toys the way a newly born baby has to struggle to live, you would be happier and much richer. As it is, with some of you, I pity the poverty of your wealth. I've just awarded you the prize for the 100-meter dash. Does it make you happy? And the student answers, I suppose it would. No dodging, please. You have the prize here. I'll write it out. Grand prize for the championship 100-meter sprint. He actually came back to my seat and pinned it on my chest. There, are you happy? You value it, or don't you? I was sore. First, that dirty crack about rich kids, a typical sneer for those who haven't got it. And now this farce. I ripped it off and chucked it at him. Mr. Dubois looked surprised. It doesn't make you happy? You know darn well I placed fourth. Exactly. The prize for the first place is worthless to you because you haven't earned it. You enjoy a modest satisfaction in placing fourth. You earned it. I trust that some of this... Oh, God. Somnambulists here understood this morality play. I fancy the poet who wrote that song meant to imply the best things in life must be purchased other than with money, which is true, just as the literal meaning of his word is false. The best things in life are beyond money. Their price is agony, sweat, and devotion. And the price demanded for the most precious of all things in life itself, ultimate cost for perfect value. Which I think is the corollary for the rest of the entire book.
Mm-hmm.
Franchise is the thing that is worth the most, which is the hardest to achieve. The ability to assert your political will over everyone else is the thing that really matters in the society. The people that want to... not even the people that want to be in charge, but the people that want to have an ability to have a say.
Yeah, have a say in molding their society that they live in.
But I enjoy any time we can beat up on Karl Marx, because Marxian value is dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Marx is a fraud. Labor theory is dumb.
Yeah. I mean, nothing is stopping, the laborers from going to a bank, getting a loan, and starting their own company if they think that their efforts are that much more valuable, right?
What you're doing is literally describing the acquisition of capital.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like the whole thing is ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, it is, but the other part that I want to draw from that passage is that the only things of value are the things that you have to exchange something else of value for, the cost part of the equation.
Yeah.
The things that are given freely have no value. Things that you get for free, you don't value or don't place value in because you didn't earn it.
Oh, you mean like education these days?
Well, like education, I think is a
Money.
great example. Well, your CERB benefit.
Yeah, you didn't earn it,
the money
and
the government
you
is giving you that you
piss it away, right?
Well, it's free money. It didn't cost you anything. You didn't have to do anything to get it. The government just awarded it to you. So you're just going to vote for the government to give you more of whatever that is, so that you can go and spend it on other meaningless trinkets. Because it has no real value to you because you didn't work for it. You didn't earn it. It's the same as Johnny's fourth place in his 100-meter dash.
Right.
Well, you can say he's first place and you can give him a award and a trophy and whatever, but like he knows he didn't earn it. It doesn't mean anything to him. It means less to him to be told that he won first place than it did for him to actually have won fourth place.
And this goes right back to, like I said, it's so long ago, but he predicted it, and this is this participation trophy society that we live in.
Say that too, yeah.
It's exactly what we're going through right now. Been going through. No end in sight, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, we all know second place is first loser, right?
Yeah,
like
best of the losers,
and that's okay.
It's okay. I mean, I take pride in the fact when I do well at PRS and say I finished 10th or whatever. Like, I'm happy. I know I worked hard. I trained hard to get to that spot. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I watch other people struggle, and it's like, well, I know I worked harder for it. That's why I finished where I finished.
Well, yeah, and like the value of that thing that you've earned is directly relatable to like the stiffness of the competition, right? Like, so if you go compete against a bunch of yahoos that don't know anything and you do super well because you've put in the time, like, yeah, you still feel great that you beat them all, right? Like your time paid off and you've done something well. But I mean, if the competition is really, really tough and everybody's really good and like you get a fourth place or a fifth place or even a 10th place, you still feel good or maybe even better than getting first against a bunch of people that are clueless.
Mm-hmm.
Because the value is relative, like you say. Like,
yep, you earned it. Simple.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things that I wish we could apply more to our current circumstances. Is, I mean, first of all, the anti-communism bit, because fuck communism.
Fuck commies.
Yeah.
But also that people should put more value into the things which they are given, or maybe we should stop giving people things so that they value the effort they have to put in to earn it. Stop with the free education. Like, who values a free education? I mean, first of all, government indoctrination centers are a scam. We all know that you don't learn things in school. But if you had to, say, treat high school or elementary school like university, where there was more of a direct cost associated with it, rather than it was just somebody else's tax dollars paying for your facilities and teachers and materials and so forth, if you personally had to put more skin in the game to get that, I mean, I certainly paid a lot more attention when I was in university and I was paying my own tab than I was when I was in high school, and I just had to show up every day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you actually had to perform and do well and not just regurgitate the nonsense that they feed to you. Right?
Well, and I think that's a different problem between
but it's still
the value
earning
of the education and our education model. I don't disagree with you. I just
it's not a monetary earning it. It's a time effort way of doing it. But
I also want to touch on some of the actual mobile infantry stuff just throughout the book that I thought was again interesting to compare and contrast to our current military. It doesn't have to necessarily be our Canadian forces, but like modern Western militaries all serve as a perfectly acceptable allegory. So Camp Curry, one of two camps on Terra in the book where they train mobile infantry. In Rico's cohort, there were 2,009 recruits on day one, and 187 graduated. That's some serious attrition.
That's worse than buds and seals.
Yeah, I was just going to say
20%.
I'm going through.
That's like under 10.
Yeah. Just over 9% of the initial cohort graduates, which I think is more than any Western military special forces qualification. Right? The attrition rate in the SEALs is like 20-odd%. The attrition rate in the Rangers is a little bit higher than that, 20 or 25%. We don't have published numbers that I can easily access for the JTF2, but like again, let's assume that people going in JTF2
probably about the same.
Close.
And this is their
10,
like this is effectively their frontline infantry force in this world. Which a couple of interesting parallels to this. I get a lot of the same kind of stuff that I get from this book in the military adventurism stuff as I do from reading books like Band of Brothers. This is very reminiscent of like World War II paratrooper type stuff or Fire Force stuff in the Rhodesian Bush Wars. It's like very small elite groups going out into Indian country and doing like really, really dangerous things and then running away. So it's all like hit and raid tactics. It's all, they talk about launching out of spaceships and drop pods into planetary atmospheres and landing on the surface and then going around and like just absolutely fucking things up because they're deploying like tactical nuclear weapons and things. But
that's kind of one of the interesting things though, like on that scene where they go down and like bomb the shit out of the skinnies. It's their job is to go there and do a bunch of damage, but like don't actually engage people unless they engage you. So like they're still trying to like do harm, but not do harm because at that point it's more political than tactical.
Yeah, let them know that
they've talked about that.
Let them know that you can completely fuck them up any moment's notice and then leave, and they can't do anything about it. Yeah, and so it's got the psychological aspect behind it.
Yeah.
They talk about that a little bit in the book that the Navy has ships with weapons that if you wanted to like just blow up a planet, they have a thing that they can do that.
Yeah.
It's not an effective tool. This is a much more effective tool to bring people to the bargaining table because you can just like drop a company of cap troopers on a planet and like just fuck their day up. and then they're
Yeah.
just going to want to surrender or negotiate or whatever, instead of blowing up the planet, which for reasons you might not want to do, like if the planet is a planet you want or has resources you want or so on and
Yeah.
so forth.
Or if you want
get
to
a lot
come
of,
to
like,
an agreement instead of just going to war.
Yeah.
The other thing that I got from this a little bit is it kind of reminds me of the Devil's Brigade stuff in World War II. So like, these guys aren't exactly like sneaking into Warchmart camps and leaving calling cards, but it's the same kind of premise. Is like a couple of dudes showed up, dropped a couple tactical nukes, and then like got away.
Yeah. In and out,
It's the same.
Yeah, appear out of nowhere because they get like basically fired from a giant gun in space in a sort of capsule into the target area, run around, destroy a bunch of stuff with tactical nukes, flamethrowers, guns, and God knows what else.
They're badass suits.
And then they have some sort of boat, which I'm assuming is some sort of ship that like takes them back up to the big ship that collects them all in like a short period of time. And like if they miss it, they miss it. And they're on their own. And they've got weird mechanical robot suits that like give them, 10 times powers of everything.
Yeah, super duper everything suits.
Yeah.
Yeah, their suits remind me of like the Halo series. Just augmented, get you jumping 10 times higher. Just enhances everything.
Yeah, which is where the obnoxious saying "on the bounce" comes from. That they repeat over.
I'm so glad that we got to Gavin's favorite part of the book.
I actually didn't mind it at all. I thought it was, I don't know, quaint.
I get it. Like I get it, right? Like, but it's just like they say it so often. You're just like,
yeah, it like literally every conversation pretty much ends with "on the bounce."
Yeah, but it's like it's their tagline for their thing. So like I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you feel about like "oorah" and like "hua" and like all this other?
If I was,
I don't know what our military says.
If I was reading a book about the Marines and every third sentence was "oorah," I would be annoyed by it.
Have you ever read any book from a SEAL? Because that's like all they say.
I mean, yes, but so far the ones I've read from SEALs are how to make your bed every morning, and then extreme ownership.
Well, that doesn't count. Those were written by officers.
I don't remember reading it. I don't remember reading it too much in American Sniper. But
let's talk a little bit about the officers bit, though, because I want to get into that. Because this is another one of those things that I would like to see applied more to Western militaries. For the mobile infantry, and it's a little bit different, I think, for their space navy in Starship Troopers, but for their mobile infantry. Everybody drops, everybody fights. We talked about that. We haven't touched on everybody does all the jobs. So it doesn't matter what the job is. It's kind of the same thing. Like every Marine is a rifleman. Every cap trooper is a cap trooper. So you get in the capsule, you drop on the planet, you fuck shit up, you drop some tactical nukes, you get on the boat, you go home.
That's the captain.
In this
that's
case,
the lieutenant.
Yeah, well, and in this case, like when they were talking about in Rizik's Roughnecks, the chaplain is one of the platoon sergeants. He's also their cook, right? Rico is the guy that's responsible for setting up new suits when they need to pull one out of cold storage and like fit it to somebody.
Yeah, he's like a mechanic tech.
Some sort of a tech, mechanic.
Yeah.
They do all of their own jobs themselves. Now they can't do everything. Like they don't drive the Navy ships, the corvettes and the troop transports and things. They have Navy crews that do that. But in terms of all of the mobile infantry stuff, the cooking, the cleaning, the maintenance, even the spiritual well-being, the fact that one of their chaplain for their platoon is one of their sergeants, everything is self-contained within that infantry unit. And they're mostly talking about platoon or company size elements. On some of the larger transports, they're talking about things that are a little bit bigger, but on the corvettes, it's like a single platoon. So they're mostly dealing with like 12 to 20 other people, and that's their whole fighting unit. And they do everything that they need to. The part that I want to get into a little bit is what to do with the officers. The mobile infantry is unique compared to most of our Western infantries in that all of their officers previously served as enlisted soldiers. which
Higher
I
within.
think is a we don't do that because here, Canada, North America, the U.S., the Britain, all of the colonial systems that we have, you can be 18, go to military school, go to military college, whether that's like Sandhurst or RMC, and you come out and you're 22 and you're a second lieutenant. In the mobile infantry, you have to be selected to go to officer candidate school after already having gone through boot camp and being an enlisted soldier.
I believe you
like,
have to
they
have
talk
served
about,
as well, like seen combat.
What? I don't know, strictly speaking, if you have to have seen combat, because that seems like, unless you're always at war, that's never going to happen. Although maybe
We've
they're
always been
always
at war with these trees.
right? Which maybe that's the case. Is maybe they've just always been at war. But it seems to me that they've had to have been enlisted. I mean, like other people in Rico's OCS class, one of them has a permanent rank of private. So their permanent rank is whatever they were before they went to OCS. Because if they get kicked out of OCS and they don't get a capital punishment or were completely expelled from the military, they go back to the fleet at whatever their permanent rank was, their rank before they were selected for OCS. So, like, Rico goes in as a sergeant when he goes to OCS. He's a veteran. He's got multiple combat drops. He's had 2 platoons, all that good stuff. But there's a private there with him that's only been in, like, long enough to go to boot camp, and then go to OCS.
Yeah, then there was one of his other, made friends who was battlefield commissioned to second lieutenant. And then by joining OCS, he got put as a third lieutenant, so down 1 rank.
Yeah.
Or it might have been
temporary third lieutenant.
First lieutenant, maybe, what his permanent rank was. I can't remember exactly. But either way, it was a downgrade going to be an officer. And Rico was like, hey, why are you doing that? Like,
why would you
didn't
do
understand.
That? But I mean, it's all about the education, right? Because I mean, this is OCS in this case is not boot camp anymore. OCS is like actually how to lead troops in combat and do the mobile infantry things and all of the other logistic concerns and whatever else that they have to do to work with the Navy and do the command and control stuff and prepare to
by having them all have enlisted, it shows that like they've been there and done that and been willing to do it, as opposed to like, where you go somewhere else and all of a sudden you get people that are officers that have never led anyone or been led by anybody now in charge of people. That's why like in the military, at least in North America, you get people called cake eaters and stuff like that, because like they've got these cushy jobs or they haven't risked anything and now they're in charge of other people. And there's a little bit of a...
You look at some of the best companies in the world. I was just saying, if you look at some of the best companies in the world, they always hire from within, right? You've already raised this person up. You've trained them the way you want to train them. And now you want them to take that next step into like leadership role, because you know what they're made of. You already know exactly what's in his repertoire of skills, and then some. So I think it's just always, it just makes sense.
Well, in my mind, how can you expect someone to be a good leader if they haven't seen what a good leader looks like, or if they haven't been a good follower? How can you be a 22-year-old kid and be expected to lead professional soldiers at something that you have only ever read about or talked about in a classroom that you've never actually done yourself?
Yeah, how do you demand respect from a platoon? Yeah.
Yeah, not to say that there aren't good officers that come out of institutions like RMC or Sandhurst or the U.S. military academies like that. There's plenty of good officers that have come out of those schools, but to have every officer have already been a good soldier first, I can't imagine the return on investment that you get out of that. Like it has to compile at such a high amount that you must get so much more for it.
Mm.
Yeah, and name one book or movie, that where that wasn't an issue, where there's some brand new second lieutenant coming in and first day out of college.
This guy don't know shit.
Shit just goes wrong. Like, name one thing where that didn't happen.
Right. I mean, part of that's probably dramatization, right? Because you got to build the story, whatever. But I mean, the other thing is like, look at anyone who was a an enlisted person, particularly a senior enlisted person who then went the officer route later in their career, they almost always have made better officers.
Yeah, and go further, go higher, do better.
Because they understand how things work, which at the same time is another thing that I want to touch on in this is the Sky Marshal. They have this rank. It's like a field marshal. It's the ultimate commander in chief of their military apparatus.
Like a 5-star general.
Sky Marshal. Yeah, well, theater commander, 5-star general, something of that effect. World War II, like the equivalent of a field marshal, like something of that order. That they're not responsible for just a battle space. They're not responsible for the theater, but they're responsible for the whole war.
Mm.
So in the Starship Troopers universe, if you want to be the Sky Marshal, you have to have been mobile infantry and captain a capital vessel for the Navy. So you got to know all the jobs. You have to have done all the cool things. And
all the biggest
cool
of big
things.
jobs.
But I mean, I think
Right?
that
So,
ties
like,
in very well with their whole political system of, earning your franchise, right? Like if you want to earn the position where you make decisions, you have to done the jobs that give you the knowledge to be able to make the correct decisions.
At least the most informed one, anyways.
Yeah, I really like that because that's one of those things that I would like
To see more
Like,
of.
seeing what I see from the outside looking into our military, or seeing what I have had seen in my limited exposure to our military. I don't like the way a lot of things are run, and I feel the same way in civilian organizations. Officers, managers generally don't know what the hell's going on around them. But the people that have been there and done it and got promoted, they generally have a pretty good handle on reality.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see more of that, right? Like having officers that have actually done the job, having managers that have actually been frontline workers or technicians or whatever that have then moved into management roles, rather than people that have just gone to university and got an MBA and now they're, like your local hospital administrator. The person that's the head of the hospital is not actually a doctor. They're somebody that's got a business degree. They have no idea how medicine works.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like we see this in all sorts of industries. We see this in the military. We see this in politics. And taking that problem out of it is one of those things that I think we could take from that book to improve our own society with. Like,
Yeah, until
get the
companies
people
start
with the
getting over
experience to do the job.
until they start ignoring the cost of it. Like it's so much cheaper just to hire someone who is fresh out of something compared to hiring someone from within. Plus, you're possibly losing a good
Sergeant.
employee in production or something like that to put them into management. And so like I see both sides of it, but I completely agree. I completely agree.
You got to think that it's worth it in the end for just efficiency's sake and just the people under them. That person will bring them up, to a higher level. That's the way I think you got to look at it.
I would hope so. I probably start wrapping things up here, but there's also been, obviously this book's been around a while, 60 odd years.
Yeah.
It has received its more than fair share of criticisms. I don't know if you guys wanted to dive into any of those
from communists.
Some of these.
Yeah, bunch of fucking commies.
Okay, so we're all on the same page. Then all the criticism is basically pinkos that are unhappy because they got called out for being pinkos.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand where any of it comes. I mean, the Corporal Punishment, I guess that comes from exactly what he talked about, is the pseudoscience, idiots in the first place.
If you spank your children, then there's going to harm them psychologically.
I'd say permanently.
I mean, yeah, if you did it for no reason and
if you're abusing, there's a difference between abusing and disciplining, obviously.
And it went into that in the book too. It covered
exactly.
that base.
Yeah. And I mean, and I can see how people have got the whole fascism thing because like you're restricting franchise. They're at war with people that are different than them. And like, especially if you watch like the movie where they've got like vaguely uniforms
Stupid fucking movie.
and things like that, right? Like,
yeah,
I can see that, but like, I think a lot of that is like, if you really dive into it and digest the material and discuss it, you'll see that it's not.
Mm.
But
that's
I could
probably
see,
where all the complaints are coming from. It's from the movie, unless
Well,
the book.
don't
At least the
doubt that,
recent
like,
stuff.
if you
Yeah.
look at it on the surface, then yeah, you could see like, oh well, yeah, there's a lot of things, but it's like you got to dig deeper into it and process it and understand where they're coming from and everything else, and to why they're doing things the way that they are, much like we are, and you'll realize that yeah, like that, no, that's not true.
Well, the thing is like, did you even read the book? I think it's
At least in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
Like
People won't even read the articles; they just read the headline. And
exactly.
So, expectations of people reading a whole novel, even though this one's not that long, like, just people have no urgency and self-drive.
Oh, wow. It's almost like you touched on that in the book.
Yeah.
What do you value? Watching Xbox games and calling people Nazis.
Yeah.
Yeah, but have you read the book? No, they're Nazis. Oh, okay. Compelling argument. Please face the wall.
Please put this over your head.
The other part that I thought was worthy of addressing is the racism bit, because people don't like that they're calling them skinnies and bugs. It's like, yeah, but what did we call the Germans during World War II? Krauts?
Yeah. Crowds.
yeah,
Right?
Japs,
just,
slopes for the on the other side of the world.
I mean, that's
Right? Like
yeah, that's part
us
of
versus
war.
them, man. Part of that is like, how do soldiers differentiate their team versus the other team? Well, you dehumanize the other team. In this case, the other team is actually not even human. They're a species of aliens, not entirely unlike arachnids, which get shorthanded to bugs. Yeah, I don't find that particularly racist. Sorry there, grammar Nazis, but good luck.
Yeah, that's just how every nation does war. All of them. Like, every race, every nation, whenever they've gone to war, there's been a term for your guys.
We're the filthy infidels.
Them, right?
Yeah, well, and you have to have us versus them, because there needs to be like them.
See what you did
they
there.
are the enemy. You have to, right? You have to identify that they're a different group. They're not.
Well,
your
like
group.
even if
They're the group that
you didn't call them, Nazis or the Hun or whatever, it's like the Axis and allies. You're still calling them something else based on their group association. Now, yes, some of the terms that have been used historically have
A little derogatory.
racial features rolled into them because you've been at war with a particular group of people that are all from a particular race. And in which case, then you could say, yes, that is racist.
Yeah,
but like when you're going against
the way that the criticism, I should say it, the way that this is written is as a criticism that it is somehow wrong.
You have an
to be
entire
racist.
race
It's
of.
like, we're literally identifying that this is a different race.
Yeah,
that's
when you have
that's
an
not so much
entire
racism as just like an obviously identifiable difference.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they
when,
look
when
like
you've got
bugs.
a
We call them
whole-
bugs.
yeah,
They
whole
are
world
skinny. We call them
populated
skinnies. Like
by entities that are arachnids and or bug-like, yeah, you're going to call them bugs, and that's not racist. Like, it's just that's what they do. That's their word for it, right? Like, you may not even know their word for them because they speak some sort of weird bug language.
Or no language in this case.
Well, they do
Yeah,
speak some sort of language because, like, they're able to communicate with the skinnies where they're kind of allies but not allies, and that's why, like, when they went there to
enemy.
bomb the crap out of them, it was more political because they're trying to sway them to get inside information. So, I mean, they're obviously quite intelligent and sentient bugs that make spaceships. But
another big difference between the book and the movie.
Bugs nonetheless. And not racist.
something not entirely unlike a bug.
Yeah.
You guys have anything else that we skipped over? You felt we missed out on?
Not really. I think I got all the
All
points
right,
I wanted to talk about.
This is the time to remind people, if you haven't bought your copy of Starship Troopers or your official Big Luau shirt, or upcoming books. Next month, our book is going to be Make Your Bed, Little Things That Can Change Your Life and Maybe the World. That's by Admiral William McRaven.
Yeah. A Navy
And the
SEAL,
September
by the
book
way.
is-
I know, weird. They wrote a book.
Yeah, September is going to be 1984 by George Orwell. If you haven't got your books yet, use our Amazon affiliate links in the show notes or on the website. If you go to CanadianPatriotPodcast.com and click on the link for Book Club at the top, you'll get a link to all the upcoming books that we're going to talk about and the books that we've already talked about. So you can use your Amazon affiliate link. If you buy something on Amazon after you use our affiliate link, we get a couple of bucks. I appreciate that because I still feel like I may have to buy a new microphone. So that's where my Amazon affiliate money is going to go towards, is getting me a new mic. Let's go around, find out where everybody can find you if they want to send a flash. Gavin, where can everybody flash you? That sounds weird.
Yeah, oof, yeah.
Crazy.
No. You can find me on the gram at Urbix_GTA.
All right. I'm not reading your screen name. Younger Andrew, where can everyone find you?
You could find me at andar.ca or bigluau.biz, and that it does go towards the CPP affiliate link. It does actually work. It looks shitty as fuck, but it works.
And that's what I appreciate.
Looks like my
Dave, where can everybody
HTML
find you?
project from grade 9. You can find me at on the IGs at Diesel6223, where I am always on the bounce.
I was really hoping that would trigger Gavin more than it did.
What's that? I'm on my phone.
I'm just ignoring Dave. It's easier that way.
You can find me at ragnaroktactical.ca. If you've listened to us do a book review, you deserve a discount code. Use the discount code Patriot at checkout. Save yourself some money. Also, $10 flat rate shipping on anything that's in stock in the store. Help me put my kid through college. I'd appreciate it. We value your opinions. Send us your feedback about this book report or any other book at feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Let us know what you think. I have to apologize to Rod Giltaka. He is still at Camp Curry. He did not get a 3-hour pass to talk to Carmen or come on the show. And for all the troopers out there in the Terran Federation, to the everlasting glory of the infantry.
Stay on the bounce.